will report the 4th week of May, because you know that time is of essence. This is also similar for the other activities, like to organize a launch. But in organizing the launch, we will do this at the national level, and it will take place in Freetown, the capital city. Those that we invite will include the network, which of course we take lead on, the Natural Resource Governance and Economic Justice Network, about 18 to 20 organizations, including coalitions that are working on natural resource issues. They must be there. CSOs working on natural resource issues, the Ministry of Mines and Mineral Resources, and I told you the last time that the Deputy Minister was at our meeting and he gave a status report of the Africa Mine Division. We are able to convince them, to persuade them to use all these tactics, skills, lobbying methods to bring them on board. Especially the Natural Resource Charter. We have the Natural Resource Charter in Sierra Leone now, the benchmarking unit. The National Mineral Agency. The National Mineral Agency, our organization, of course, is one of the groups that pushed for the establishment of the agency so that they will be responsible mainly for monitoring compliance of the natural resource sector, whilst the ministry will design policies. So these ones we invite because we have been working together. And of course, the Sierra Leone Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative is selected. And we'll do the report, of course, the 4th week of May. But this activity actually goes along sub-activity like media engagement. Because we want to believe that in all what we are doing, we have to popularize our work. And if we are going to popularize our work, we need the media people to help amplify the outputs, their engagements, the activities, and the relevance of this model mining law. So we have both electronics and print media, and we also have radio discussion programs. Why? Because we need to go to the radio, including some participants at the workshop or the launch, to flag the outputs to the wider audience, so that people actually know that there is a model mining law that we are agitating for, so that it can be integrated and domesticated even in our own context. So far, this is what we have in Sierra Leone.
First of all, how do we identify? We say we are going to identify participants from CSOs and then affected mining communities. Not only CSO, but we'll be looking at like-minded civil society organizations who already have track records of working in the natural resource management sector. And then the training of trainers will focus, as I said, like-minded civil society organization, merely because we want to know or we want to make sure that our training should not go in vain. As a real goal and objective of the training, you will know why we want to really target those like-minded civil society organizations, as well as committed residents who are affected as a result of mining. Now, what is the goal of this project? To domesticate the modern mining law in Liberia in the long term. And then what is the objective? To introduce the modern mining law to civil society organizations and mining community residents so that they can use it as an education and advocacy tools in Liberia. And that's very major what we hope to do. And then some of our activities include, first of all, we need to have meetings. Although we were informed about this workshop prior to our arrival here, but as a civil society organization, we need to go back, stay, and talk to our colleagues to identify a particular date and what the training is about, which we know that will be conducted as being mandated because of time is in our favor in May. So we're going to have a training of trainers workshop. It depends to the arrangement we're going to be having, whether we have 1 day or 2 days, where it depends on the funding, even though we've been told about the amount to be received. But basically, we'll be taking people from communities. As you know, the institution name is the Rural Human Rights Activist Program. Our activities is really based in rural communities. So we hope to bring those people who suffer a lot from mining activities to be part of this initiative. And then we said we're going to be also having a meeting with national actors. We have the lady who is responsible for mining activities. We have Minister of Lands, Mines, and Energy. And of course, our donors, like the U.S. Embassy, usually attend our program. EU, we hope to bring them forth to see what we are doing. And then we're going to have press releases or press conferences so that the work that we're doing from the IRA level can be seen by other citizens in Liberia. Now, what do we want to achieve at the end of the day? I think I stated that already, but just to re-emphasize, that the MML is being widely used by civil society and CBOs and mining community residents in their advocacy initiative. And then, process of the MML, like we did, like we've been doing previously, is being incited into national policy documents. And by that, we hope that we're making a headway. Thank you very much.
For Zambia, basically the methodology that we're going to use to conduct this activity is similar to what is being done here. We are going to use the multiplier effects of advocacy. So in that, we are going to have CSOs and community influencers advocacy training on the use of the model mining law. So prior to the training on the use of the model mining law, we're going to have a workshop that basically tries to pinpoint misalignments and gaps in our legislative framework governing extractive industries. Thereafter, we're going to have this training on the use of the model mining law, advocacy on the model mining law and how it will work to our benefit. So the output of the training is basically having an action plan, advocacy work on domesticating the model mining law into the existing framework. So at the end of the workshop, at the end of the meeting, we need to have an advocacy action plan on which each and every stakeholder that's going to be sitting is going to have a role on how they're going to take up this in the advocacy work. So the meeting has 4 objectives that will lead to achieving this output. First of all, we'll conscientize people on the model mining law and how it can be used for advocacy purposes. The second one is developing an action plan of the model mining law and how it will fit into the advocacy work. The CSOs are already engaging based on the priority sectors, be it environment, the economy, or translation issues. We're also looking at strengthening the capacity to advocate for women, to advocate for extractive industry reforms. So we've got a specific target for women we want to bring to this meeting. And lastly, because we're looking at an action plan and want to empower people with the tools to use to push this agenda forward, we're also going to develop advocacy infographics. So the advocacy infographics we're looking at can be in form of video clips for those institutions that are very good on social media, that they can circulate on social media, and also posters for community-based organizations so that it will be easier for community representatives to understand the work and the agenda they're pushing forward based on the model mining law. So based on that target of participants, we're looking at a total of 35 participants. And with respect to this, the resources that will be needed are a whole accommodation for the participants, because we're looking at stretching across the country for our influencers, stationary communication, teas, projector hire, facilitator fee, rapporteur fee, transport, yeah. So this is basically what we're looking at with those resources. So also going to make use of what we've learned here, like the tweet moments, just to get to popularize the work of the model mining law and how different institutions are going to take up this role. Thank you.
We shall utilize the only coming professional mining leader to launch the document, the model mining law, and the gender mainstream guide. We take this opportunity just because we gather different stakeholders, such as MPs, CSOs who are working in the natural resources sector, CBOs, mining companies, communities, and government representatives. We also, CBOs shall also continue to familiarize with this document, training communities and the local community and other local and other communities which are being affected by mining activities. We shall also share the documents with the mining company through community lives and meetings that we undertake, so that the mining company can incorporate some other laws during the policy reforms, its policy reforms. Taking opportunities also on public hearings that will be doing legal reforms so as to buy in from the gender mainstreaming guide and the model mining law document, particularly during the Mine and Minerals Act consultations. We shall have the trainers, trainers of trainers, training of monitors to improve coverage within the communities, to disseminate information even to the village levels. We shall also take an opportunity of airing through the radio to talk about this model mining law and the gender mainstream guide through the local radio, which is the FM in Shawan. Thank you.
For us, we had already organized an activity soon after this workshop. Suffice to say that we've made adjustments in view of the improved resource envelope, because what we had previously was barely adequate, but not adequate in the sense that we had to limit the number of participants. You know, the objective of our function is the one that determines the participants to be invited. So once you have the objectives, then you know who are the participants to invite to help you achieve your objectives. So for us, the activity that we have in the pipeline is a training of civil society organizations. But at the end of it, I'll also give you an overview of the other activities that we are proposing to complement the engagement with the CSOs. And who are these CSOs? We are targeting the Natural Resource Justice Network, which is an association of civil society organizations in Malawi that are interested in issues of extractives. And right now, the vibrance of this network is much more urgent than ever, because now there is a discovery of oil and gas in Lake Malawi, and government has just issued the oil exploration licenses to would-be companies. So as a civil society, we are working towards strategically position ourselves to address issues of oil and gas mining. We have two major objectives of the workshop for the civil society. One is to raise awareness and build the capacity of the model mining law and policy advocacy guidelines. Secondly, we would want to plan for the national model mining law policy and advocacy, implying that at the end of it all, we want to have an advocacy strategy in place with the detailed activities in terms of how we want to take forward issues of the MML. We are hoping that we can also highlight the gender implications of the MML to make sure that the gender impacts are actually clearly highlighted. As in polishing our plans and activities, we are proposing to the plan to take on board the upcoming budget sitting of Parliament. That is in May. It's actually very expensive to invite MPs from their constituencies for a meeting. But when they are already in a sitting, it's a bit manageable because you don't pay them like a hefty transported funds, other than maybe fuel for local running within the city, and you invite them for lunch or dinner. For me, that's not a problem, because in any case, lobbying has to be done over a meal to make sure that the emotions are sober enough. We intend to have other costs like facilitator fees. Our impression is that the MMLO having lots of legal jargon, it would be better facilitated by a lawyer, maybe one lawyer who has had some expertise working with the civil society. We have quite a couple in mind, one that engaged when we're doing the land bill. So we hope that a lawyer can actually be engaged to facilitate, especially issues to do with the MML, so that members can adequately understand the legal jargons and be able to link with their day-to-day language on issues under extractive industry. So in brief, this is what we have for Malawi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So try to work as an approach of multi-stakeholders approach. That's what we are going to use. I will not mention it because we understand what multi-stakeholders are. The civil society, the NGOs, government, traditionally there's all of them. And my objective is to make the participants understand the principles of the MML. They will understand the need for policy change, and then the gender mainstreaming that we have been talking about. And I want them to be advocates of MML after the workshop. How are we going to go? The activities that we will do include radio talks, and we will also do community sensitization, press releases, meetings, and then the official lunch. Then the brief history about the MML will tell the participants so that they will be conversant with it. From there, what we do, we will let the whole country know that this law is a new one, is not included. Some part of it is not included in the Ghana mining laws. So we need to enforce it. And who is to do that? The participants. Everybody has a role to play. So we throw a challenge to the participants as to how to make things workable so that the MML will take its shape as we want it. I'm targeting the women so that they will be able to lobby their husbands. The MPs have wives, they have sisters who talks and they listen. So we are going to use them to lobby the top officials so as to make things workable. We have already had some sessions of trainings with some of the community members. We are going to still involve them effectively for them to take up. And we have developed an advocacy message that is, communities deserve fair share of national resources. This message is going to be on the television 24 hours, and we are going to develop jingles so that whenever you see it, it reminds you about the MML. So we want to use this approach to capture the country. Thank you.
Thank you. Mine is very short, and due to the fact that I was in the Ugandan group, so it looks like a Ugandan, but we discussed together, and these are the things that we are going to do. First of all, we are going to hold a workshop that will include CSOs, government, local, both local and central, and plus mining companies, without forgetting the community members. Now, the aim is to create awareness to CSOs, communities, and other stakeholders. And we expect that CSOs and the other stakeholders will be able to to understand or to know about MML. Secondly, we expect to translate and print the materials like posters, banners, so as these materials can enhance understanding to community members, stakeholders, and other people. Thirdly, we are going to launch the MML, and the launch will involve representatives from communities, CSOs, and the government. Also, we're going to use media, as the others have said. The aim is to disseminate MML materials or understanding to a wider audience. Thank you.
We realized that this document has to be understood by the communities, and in doing that, we prioritized the activity of simplifying the materials. We can bring it into smaller fashions. We can use cartoons so that it can be easily understood by our audience. And to improve ownership by the communities of the same document, we realized we need to create awareness, we need to have community forums, we need to train TOTs, we need to do sensitization, we need to empower community. We also will also be using local radio talk shows. We need to have workshops, and then we also need to engage parliamentarians. We also, to kind of highlight the problem that is still, you realize in Kenya we have contributed very much in the current bill that is awaiting presidential ascension, but to be able to realize the problem that we are still remained with, we need to do auditing on the existing bills, on the existing acts, and identify the gaps so that we can see how we can input it into the remaining bills, like for example the community land bill that is still going to come up. And we also know in August our parliament has a deadline of August to complete their enactments. So we realized that we may also, as a civil society or as an NGO, have an opportunity to squeeze in some of our requirements in the acts that I know we are used to this in Kenya. When that deadline comes, they just pass them so passively and fast, you know. They don't even have the time to look at it. So we identified that as an opportunity for us. There is also emphasis also was put on women groups that were, because women normally are a target for politicians. Next year we are going to be having elections, and we know women will be targeted next year by politicians for votes. So we realized we need to empower them and to have them lobby for these issues, because women in this country are a very strong, constituent, let me say, group. Because once they understand the problem that is facing them, you can be assured they'll be able to push it to the end. So we want to capitalize on that as well. And then results, of course, will be expected sometime in mid next year, around June. Thank you.
I thought that we should work on or enhance the work that we have already been doing in South Africa. And as I said, there is already work underway that there is a meeting of the civil society in the coming 2 months, which is one of the meetings that we are going to use to highlight the MML. It will not necessarily be a workshop, but at least to put forth a discussion on MML. And with regard to the community, we already have a program, but we are going to also enhance it, maybe in terms of content from MML, We have a program called Community Monitoring Program, which is necessarily a training, an activist training program. It will come handy for this in terms of, in terms of popularizing this in the community. We're hoping that the meetings of the facilitators from the communities would introduce this, to take this one up. But also we have highlighted issues in the MML which are part of our program as a SAR. One of the issues was of remedies. We are willing to take up the process, and though it's a plan, it can fit into this. We are willing to take up the process. We are presently identifying 5 communities, to see if we cannot necessarily come up with an independent grievance mechanism supported by an independent fund, where all the expertise that are needed for the community, can be able to be sourced, given the resources. So, but over and above, our program is too big. IANRA, its headquarters is in South Africa, and we have availed ourselves to say that we would participate in some of the dialogues that they initiated at the regional level, and PAP, because they are based in South Africa. And then we are willing to offer our assistance in terms of exchange of some of the models we use, to be able to disseminate the MML. That's one thing. We have, like I said, we have a community monitoring program, which is a rollout of workshops that is already in place. The only thing for us, what we want to do is to feed in the MML content, especially in the province where we had undertook the research. We've been going there, and we hope that we are going to intensify and maybe consolidate the region, because it's more rural, so that when we move to a national platform, they are well prepared. We intend to have a national networking meeting also, which will include one-day workshop on the advocacy and monitoring toolkits from IANRA. So this is what we can offer. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think Rosemary and I have talked before, and I think we can be kind of explicit. We got a lot of work done over the last 3 years, but not quite what we had planned. We're jamming a lot of things into these last few months, and I'm really quite excited and inspired by, kind of the momentum you guys have. So again, the notion of the evaluation is to capture the successes and challenges you've had and try to keep that momentum. So please, let's be explicit about some of our challenges, whether they be time, resources, that sort of thing. And let's also try and keep the momentum. So I think, that's important to say. There may have been things that were considered 3 years ago that somehow along the line stopped making sense. If we can kind of identify those to make sure they're captured, and maybe get some good conversation going about how to avoid that in the future, that would be great. So again, if there were things that you thought you were going to do and still expect to be done, and got lost, let's capture those. And things that just stopped making sense, let's capture those. I think we can categorize them a little bit. I think as far as process goes, Rosemary and I will work together and feel free to provide input, but we'd like to have at least a simple questionnaire for everybody, including people who know very little about the project in MML, but may have heard about it, because we'd like to know how they heard about it, and you guys that know all kinds of things about it. And then we'll have more involved questionnaires and interviews for you guys. In the next 3 weeks, I'll be visiting two of the communities in Zimbabwe and here in Kenya. And so there'll be time prior to that for us to talk a little bit more, and even the next few days. But pretty good stuff. Way to go. Please feel free to comment that you're still working on this, and let's make sure we identify the things that you're going to finish in the next 2 months versus the things you want to still get done maybe next year or the year after. Thank you.
Yeah, Taffy asked me to excuse her. So also probably on her behalf and Anne's behalf and the whole team of the Secretariat, I think, yeah, personally I've seen and experienced over the last 3 days way more than I maybe expected, and was so much deeply buried in organizational stuff that you kind of don't see that things are really alive, and it's only when we come together where you feel and see. In so many countries, there's so many great organizations already doing so much work related to MML, but also have the interest to see how the MML can be useful in their contexts, and can be used for policy harmonization, but more importantly for community work and making sure that there's as wide as much leverage and usefulness of the MML on the local level, because I think that's where it makes most sense. So I'm really excited about the last couple of days. I also thought yesterday was great to see how a launch also brings together. I mean, shows also what then all the little steps are, and how as a collective it's huge. That's how it feels now. So to me, it's not only a launch. It really came alive, and it feels also at the same time as a start of something more. And I feel totally re-energized because we're doing it together. So thanks for all of your energies and sharing your experience. And I've learned a lot about how to go about advocacy from local level to national to regional to international. And I'm also hopeful that we can link it up to our work that we're doing in the Netherlands, and maybe over time also in Europe, maybe from a consumer's perspective, maybe differently. So thanks a lot.
Has been doing for the past 3 years. Literally, it was commissioned yesterday, launched officially, and we are saying that was the starting point of another phase, and this phase is the most important one, because the first one, which was fact-finding, we got the message, and now we are saying the message that is at hand in the form of model law legislation is going now to roll out in the minds of the communities in Africa. And this time we have been sharing in the 5 countries, but the fire is going to spread to further, to more 8 countries. Maybe by the end, by the middle of the project, other countries are also coming in and joining. So we might have even more countries participating in this noble exercise. And that's where my excitement is. As I had put it yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, let's be committed. We know where the greatest weakness is. The greatest weakness in our continent is the voice of the voiceless. We need to empower the people. If you want this thing to be done well, then we should be committed with the local people, trying to understand what is contained in the model legislation, trying to compare their problems with that model legislation, and see how they can move forward. In that sense, I believe these are the people to drive crazy about our MPs, our MCAs in our situation in Kenya, and all the senators and any other lawmakers that will make a change up to the level of the continent. Otherwise, thank you once again, and God bless you.